Hello, this is Don Victor, author of Drawn to Win, host of the podcast Drawn to Win, the director of the Academy of Composition, and the creator of the Core 80 Experience, also known as the See and Grow Rich in Art video course, which you can find out more information at core80.com. This is the Drawn to Win podcast, where I have the incredible privilege to draw artists from around the world into fun and meaningful conversations around art and life, and yes, maybe even a little food. You can hear us each week on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So make sure you subscribe so you always have a seat among friends. Let's get into the show. Guest today is Dena Ackerman. She's a Jewish illustrator out of Israel. And like my little accent when I say it, Israel.
Yeah, nice.
And so Dena Ackerman, aka Dena Valentine. Some people may say Dena Valenstein. But she's an illustrator, and we're going to just go ahead and jump into this cool conversation with her. And so welcome to the show, Dena.
Thank you. Today? I'm great. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So first thing we always start with is, what are you currently working on? What's the projects that you're working on now?
So I'm just starting to illustrate a new picture book.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. This is for a publisher that I've done a couple other books with. And this, the topic of this book is it's a kid's book, and it's about having a Jewish name. So it's kind of a concept book. So we're trying to figure out how to illustrate that, visually. Mm-hmm. So I just started some sketches for that. And I have a little commission painting that I'm working on for somebody. And I think that's it right now.
That's cool. So, have you been illustrating books for a while?
Yeah, about 6 years.
Wow.
7 years.
If I say, wow, 7 years, will you go to 8?
No, because now I'm thinking that it's probably less than that, actually.
Uh-oh. No, we won't go. We'll go any further. That's cool. So how did you get into like your first book? Like, how did that come about?
So the first book I did was a word of mouth. Basically, a friend of mine knew the author of this book, and they were looking for an illustrator, so she recommended that she get in touch with me, and she did. Mm-hmm. And the publisher that she was using didn't know who I was, so I did a few sample illustrations for them, and they liked them. And so they hired me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So before you got to the point of where you're illustrating books, where was the artist Dena at that point? Like, what was your journey? Like, first, let's start with, when did you find out that you were an artist? Like that this was your thing, your gift?
So I think probably like my parents figured that out first.
Okay.
Because I was always drawing as a kid. Like my school notes were always full of doodles, and my parents were really encouraging, and my grandparents actually who of course thought I was a genius. So they sent me to art lessons and, hired teachers, private teachers and things like that. So I'm very grateful to them, even though I don't know if I was so much at the time. But so that was a good opportunity to learn different types of stuff.
And how old were you roughly when you were getting those private tutors?
Probably like 13 through high school,
Nice.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I always like to find what people are doing between the ages of 12 and 15.
Yeah.
I always say, like you're too old to be a kid, too young to be an adult. And in those years, a lot of times, you really end up finding who you are or what you are. And And then you go into adulthood, and then you got to struggle and fight to remain true to that. And
Yeah, so I did that actually. Like I, for a long time, art was a hobby,
mhm.
and it never occurred to me that I could actually make a living doing it or make a career out of it. So I did, I had other jobs doing other kinds of stuff. And
So what was one of these jobs doing other kinds of stuff that
um,
what was the
like
most embarrassing job you had?
the most embarrassing job I ever had. Uh, I don't know. I don't think any of them were terribly embarrassing. They were mostly like personal assistants and event coordinating and
Oh, okay. Which suits your
like
personality. That suits you.
that. Yeah.
Um
Um,
okay, so now did you head off to like university at some point, or did you just start illustrating, or like how did you go from young Dena to young professional Dena?
um, well, after I finished high school, I studied in Israel for a couple of years,
Okay.
and I got a bachelor's degree, not anything to do with art. And then I started working, and I lived in New York for a bit, and then I was in LA for a bit, and doing all sorts of stuff. And I was always painting on the side, and every now and then I would get a commission, um, but it wasn't until I was probably like 30,
Hmm.
and I was already married with, I guess, a couple kids. Um, and it just dawned on me all of a sudden, like maybe I should try to actually, make a living somehow doing this. And then my first illustration job kind of fell into my lap, and that was probably the start of it.
That's cool. That's cool. And what was one of your favorite books that you illustrated?
Mm, Not my first one. I think I was the most excited about my first one, but now I look back at it and just see, all the ways that it could be better. But so my favorite, I don't know.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. You just said that you look back and you could see like ways that it could have been better. What are like one or two ways, like if you could go back and tell yourself, like, hey, be aware of this or focus on this or whatever, like how could you have made that better for yourself?
Um, I think I was very much trying to copy a style that I really liked, but that wasn't exactly working for me.
Hmm.
So it took me a while to, I guess, be comfortable illustrating in a style that was more personal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, the characters are a little bit stiff, and the layout is a little bit awkward sometimes. And one thing that really bothers me is that there are a couple pages where just the scan was a little too dark, and you know, I guess I didn't realize, and nobody on their end realized, although they should have, because I know they print proofs and stuff before. But anyway, so the whole page is kind of too dark, which
Okay.
bothers me.
It's
But
not a vision.
yeah. So I've learned a lot. It's a
That's
learning
cool.
process.
That's cool. Very cool. So when you're doing a book and you have to do what, like typically how many illustrations are you doing in a book?
It's a standard picture book is usually about 32 pages,
Hmm.
but that includes, like end pages and stuff. So usually there's about 24 illustrated pages.
Okay. And then like what's one way that you manage that process for yourself? Because that sounds like a big project and
Yeah.
with a lot of little moving parts in it. Like how do you organize yourself to do that?
So I usually do very, very rough thumbnails,
Hmm.
or rough sketches of the whole book altogether, all the pages, but without a lot of detail and without a lot of planning just to get the idea mapped out,
Mm-hmm.
what's going to go on each page and how it's going to flow. And I usually send that off to the publisher so they can give me their input. And then we, if we need to make changes to the ideas or if something's not working, so we can do it at that stage before I spend too much time doing a detailed drawing. And then once we have that all mapped out, then I do a little bit more detailed sketches. And then when those are all approved, then I do the final artwork.
Okay, cool. And then do you do one, when you do the final artwork, do you paint one at a time, or do you work on a group of them, or like?
Yeah, I usually do one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then like in your experience, typically by the time you're done finishing the illustrations to the time that there's actually a physical book published and available in the market, what's a time frame that you're kind of aware of?
Depends how much of a rush the publishers are in. So sometimes it takes a few months, and sometimes it can take a year or more.
Oh wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then do you have to wait until they publish it before you get paid, or is that something that like they work like that's just separate from going to publish?
No, they pay me. They pay me usually throughout the process. Sometimes it's broken up monthly,
Oh, okay.
So if it takes 6 months, then I'll get, they break it up into 6 payments or, but I can't wait till the book's published because then the bills don't get paid and the kids won't have shoes and,
They don't need shoes. It's warm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Dena, project yourself into the future, 5-10 years. You're an illustrator now. Where do you see yourself in 5-10 years? Where do you want to be? Like, what do you want to be doing?
That's a good question.
I know. That's why I have you on.
You ask the good questions. I love illustrating because I love books. I've always loved, reading, and I've always loved illustration. So I don't want to necessarily stop illustrating, but I would love to do more fine art.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now I'm working for other people. I don't really get to express anything of my own. Mm-hmm. So I would love to be able to just do some paintings for myself. And I also love doing portraits. So maybe do more portraiture.
That's nice. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, as a personal project in the fine arts, is there an idea that you want to tackle?
Yeah, there is. A few different things, but I think what they have in common is I do love painting people, so I want it to be something figurative. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily Jewish art, but maybe with a biblical kind of theme.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe characters that appeal to me from the Jewish Bible or historical figures. Yeah.
And do you want to do them as paintings or a book, or do you or both?
Yeah,
or?
I would love to do them as paintings. I'll probably try to get you to help me with that one of these.
Very nice. Very nice. So if you were going to help another artist expand, what kind of encouragement or recommendations would you give them?
Expand generally as an artist?
Or specifically as an artist?
Okay, well, what I tell my students is that they need to practice more. People don't seem to want to practice. They kind of think they can just, I don't know, absorb things somehow.
Mm.
And or come to class once a week and just pick it up. And I tell them, you're not going to get anywhere if you're not practicing as much as possible. So I think people really have to put the time in.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And what does the time do? Like when you practice, what does that look like?
so I feel like I've been practicing my whole life. So I have a head start because I was drawing, since I was young, and I can, I never stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, because I love people,
Mm-hmm.
and I love to draw people or paint people. So I'm always observing people. I'm like a people watcher,
Oh, nice,
like
nice.
I'll go out with, and people will be staring at all the people, and I'm just like watching people. So I think that helps you, because I never studied anatomy or, I don't have like a very deep understanding of exactly how the body is put together, but I kind of feel like I've absorbed it just by watching people and the way they move and the way they stand, and
That's awesome.
so yeah.
I forget the artist, but he said something along the lines. It might have been Ang. If you're not drawing with a pencil, draw with your mind. And so you're just analyzing and observing and deconstructing and constructing, and and just not taking things as you see them, but you're actually looking through them and penetrating them. And so that's cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So on the podcast, we have this idea of agency. And so I wanted to have you share with us part of your art agency, your network, and share maybe 3 businesses, people, or services that you use to help you achieve your greatness.
I do most of this technical stuff on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Like I photograph my own work usually, or scan it or whatever. So I don't know if I have any businesses to recommend. But there are people who help me. My family's been an amazing support.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is I teach at an art school, and the head of the school, I'm very grateful to her because I resisted teaching for a long time. I never thought I would want to teach. And she saw my work somewhere, and she said, "Do you want to teach for us?" And I said, "I don't have any teaching credentials. I never taught before." And she said, "You're so talented. We want you to teach. We want you to teach." And I was so surprised because she had no idea if I would be a good teacher or not. All she knew was that, I could paint, but it doesn't really mean that you're going to be able to teach others. But she really just believed in me for some reason. And she kept hounding me to come and teach at her school. So I finally gave in, I think, just from the pressure. And I found that I really love it. And I feel like I would maybe not have ever taken the opportunity or started teaching from my own initiative, but I'm very grateful that she kind of forced me into it because I discovered something that I also love to do.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. What is it about teaching that excites you, that gives you that enthusiasm?
I guess it's exciting to be able to just share knowledge with other people and see that how it excites them. And I like giving people the tools and the confidence to, just kind of explore their artistic side. Sometimes people come in and they don't think they have an artistic side, and sometimes they don't really. But I like to put them at ease and make them feel like it doesn't matter if they're good or not. They can have fun, and they can, I tell them not to be worried about creating a masterpiece. Just look at it as practice. I always tell them whatever they're doing is just to regard it as practice, because
Nice.
then you don't have to worry about messing it up. and they have fun. And some of my students are incredibly talented, and they may be more talented than I am, and so it's fun to also watch them grow and discover what they can do.
Awesome. And in with your inside your network, um, do you find your own work, or do you have people who bring work to you?
Um, it's pretty much word of mouth at this point. Um, I have a net. There are some publishers that I've worked for who come back, for various jobs, and sometimes it's word of mouth. So it's new people that I don't know. I don't know how they hear about me.
I just woke
But
up and had a dream.
yeah, right. Call Dena Ackerman. Um, and also, I should say, in terms of network, is that I also have a Facebook group that's
Mm,
called J Artist, and it's for Jewish artists because we Jews like to stick together.
in any way.
but but that's been really useful also, because I think it's good to have people who can give you feedback or advice, or help when you're stuck on something, and so that's been really valuable also.
That's awesome.
And we do refer, if someone gets a job and they can't take it, they'll post it, and maybe someone else can do it.
That's cool. Very, very cool. So now comes the most important question of all, because without it, we would not be alive. So, Dena,
Yes.
share with us
Uh-huh.
one of your favorite foods.
My favorite foods. Um, so I really like food. I like to eat food, but I'm not really like a food person. So
Uh-huh.
if I say pizza, will you despise me for not
Yes.
being?
How horrendous. Oh, pizza's like the most amazing food in the world.
Okay.
Um, but like tell me like a Jewish food that you enjoy.
A Jewish food that I enjoy.
I don't even know if I can call it that, but I guess
I
you can call it
like
that, right?
I like anything that's like made with flour and sugar and like has carbs in it. So anything that's like cake or bread, or like on Shabbos, on Shabbat we eat challah, which is like a bread.
Uh-huh.
Um, I could just eat like challah all day, with peanut butter.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Nice, nice. Now, do you make it?
Do I make it? I do sometimes.
Oh, shoot. Now,
Yeah.
what I was looking at your friend Yoel's illustrations the
Uh-huh.
other day, and I noticed a lot of his illustrations had people with donuts, and they were dropping donuts out of windows and things. And I was like,
What?
oh, yeah, it was like I don't know what it was, but they're just like donuts everywhere.
Maybe it was a Hanukkah theme.
It might have been. It might have been. And um, so well, I guess that answers my question, because I was going to
So
wonder if
do
you
Jews
make the.
eat donuts, you want to know? Is that a Jewish thing? Maybe they were bagels.
Maybe that's what they might have been.
Ah.
Ah, bagels. Okay.
Ah.
That makes sense. Uh, I know in Pennsylvania, the Dutch, we have a holiday. We call it Donut Day. But
Really?
yeah, and so when we're in school, they bring donuts in, and maybe that's why we have so many Dunkin' Donuts around here. But
Uh-huh.
the the Dutch, they would do this thing that would be called Fastnachts, and it was basically like where they had all this extra lard left over, and they needed to get rid of it for some reason, so they would just
Uh-huh.
basically have like this day where they would just make all of these donuts, and just like it's so cool. It's like the coolest day of the year in Pennsylvania.
Ooh, yeah. We Jews should adopt a donut holiday, I think.
That's awesome. With peanut butter on top.
Well, we have a donut holiday, but
Oh, really?
yeah, but it's it's Hanukkah is one of our things we do is fry things in oil. So, donuts.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, because, all Jewish holidays have the same theme as the joke goes.
And what's that? Eat.
They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So I guess in a weird way, my podcast is very is the soul of a Jewish thing. We go through the art stuff and then we end with food.
That's right. It does.
Beautiful.
It all comes down to what can we get out of this, in terms of food.
So Dena, if anyone wants to get in contact with you or connect with you, how could they do that? Where can they go to get some more info on Dena Ackerman?
I have a website, Dena, Dena Ackerman.com.
Awesome.
And I'm on Facebook, Art by Dena. And I've been told that I need to get on Instagram, and so maybe I will be there one of these days.
That works too. So DenaAckerman.com and then you said your Facebook page, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the best places. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Dena, I thank you for coming on the show. It was a fun show. And when I come to Israel, we're having some donuts.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. You got to come in December, though, for the donuts.
December? Oh, because of Hanukkah. So we'll get all the donuts. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Awesome.
All
Looking forward.
Yep. Be well.
Thank you. You too.
Hi. My name is Delisha van Deventer. I am from Gauteng in South Africa. I am a landscape artist. I'm currently doing the Core 80 at the Academy of Composition. This course has had an invaluable impact in my life, into what my art should look like and how I should be presenting my art to the art world. When I was challenged with what it means to interpret and read and analyze the old masters, I found myself starting to read their thoughts and the way they put certain objects in strategic places, the way their bodies would line up and lean in a certain direction, and why certain elements were lined up. All of these were so beautifully composed and strategically designed to fit into a story, so that when the viewer looks at the painting, they are mesmerized and the energy of the piece draws them into the story. As an artist, I will be applying these principles so that my art can have that wow factor and go to another level. I highly recommend this course to all aspiring artists, especially amateur artists, accomplished artists, and as well as gallery owners.
In just 30 days, the Core 80 experience teaches you to decode the intentional design underneath great masterpieces. Through video lessons, assignments, and feedback, you learn to recognize the underlining structures like thrust maps, echoes, and gamuts that give master compositions substance and gravitas. Knowing how master artists and illustrators compose their artwork unlocks your ability to give your artwork more meaning and energy. Enroll today and get a 7-day no-hassle money-back guarantee at core80.com.